Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the body of Chapter 8 where we'll be looking at time and billing within Sage. In this chapter, we'll talk about how Sage handles work that's based on time and services rather than physical products. You'll see how activity items and charge items are used for this type of billing. An activity item is used to track billable time, things like consulting work or design work, and it's what we use when we create time tickets in the system. A charge item, on the other hand, represents a flat fee or a non-time-based service like a delivery charge or a setup fee. Even though Sage calls these inventory items, they don't represent goods that you physically stock or sell. They're just the way that Sage organizes and tracks time and service charges for billing purposes. In this chapter, we'll set up some of these items, create time tickets, and then see how the information flows into customer invoices. Let's go ahead and get started. And in this chapter, we are not using the Bellwether Garden Supply. We're using the other sample company that's built into the software. So to get started, what you're going to do is click on Explore a Sample Company, and you're going to select Stone Arbor Landscaping. And then you click OK. If you run into any issues opening up Stone Arbor Landscaping for the first time, on the Canvas page for our course, if you go to the home page and scroll down to course resources, I have placed a starter file for chapter 8 here. So you can download that by clicking on the arrow, and then you're going to have to, if you use this, your backup file, you're going to have to go into Sage, and rather than open the file or just double click on the file, you have to go to File and then Restore, and then browse for that backup. So hopefully you don't run into any issues just opening the sample company, but in case you do, that file's out there if you need it. We are just going to be using Stone Arbor Landscaping for Chapter 8 only. Starting in Chapter 9, we're going to start setting up some brand new businesses in the software. One little warning too, the years that you're going to see within Stone Arbor Landscaping on your end are going to show 2022 dates. The textbooks, again, using 2019 dates, just roll with the same dates but use the year of 2022 instead of 2019. And one last little house cleaning task here for us is to change the company name so that it includes your name on all the reports. And to do that, click on the Maintain button from the drop down and then find Company Information. And on the window that pops up, just edit the company name so that it includes your name. And then once you've made that edit, click OK, and now all the reports that you run will have your name on them. So we're going to explore this sample company and see how the business has set up time and billing. And to do that, we're going to click on the Inventory and Services area from the navigational menu. And from here, we're going to click on the button that says Inventory Items, and then we're going to select View and Edit Inventory Items. The sample company Stone Arbor Landscaping is only providing services to its customers. It's not directly selling goods like our Bellwether Garden Supply. When we looked at the inventory list with Bellwether Garden Supply, we had both inventory items as well as service-related items in this list. So even though this list is called an inventory list, that's a little bit of a misleading label. When we usually refer to the word inventory in an accounting sense, we're talking about product that a business intends to resell. Whereas what we're looking at here is a list of different services that the business charges for. But this could include products that are sold as well. So if you remember, if you wanted to create a new item in this list, you would click New, and then you would fill out this sheet, and the first thing is giving the item an ID. That's like a SKU. The description would be the item's name, and the item class is where you specify, is this really a product that we intend to resell, or is it a service, and so on. And we have these two special categories for item class: activity item and charge item. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at now. We can see that the list here for this sample company includes activity items, charge items, and services. Service items, activity items, and charge items all represent work or services rather than physical products, but they're used in slightly different ways. A service item is the most general of the three. It's used when you want to record or sell a service without tracking time. For example, installing a sprinkler system in a commercial environment, installing a sprinkler system in a residential environment. Stone Arbor has set up a flat fee for these services when we invoice our customers. Now, just because the invoice would autofill with this flat fee that's in the system for this particular service, the business, of course, would have the ability to modify that amount per the contract that they have with the customer. Example, if we had a really large piece of property that we're installing a sprinkler system on, that's going to mean a lot more work and cost for the business to do that. An activity item is part of the time and billing system in Sage and is tied to time tickets. We'll be taking a look at those in a minute. You'd use these for work billed by the hour. For example, lawn maintenance, I guess they got it as weekly maintenance for residential, weekly maintenance for commercial. Those are typically billed by the hour, and the software would take the hours work multiplied by the hourly rate from the activity item to calculate the total billable amount to show up on the invoice. Whereas a charge item is for flat non-hourly fees, things like a delivery fee or a hauling charge or a mulch application. Let's see what they have here. Yeah, they have delivery charges. Looks like some copies of the plans that they're coming up with for the customer's landscaping, a charge to print it. These charge items don't depend on time or later hours. They're simply fixed charges added to the customer's bill. When you look at the three item types together, it might seem like the service item and the charge item are sort of similar, but there is a subtle difference in how they're typically used. A service item is meant for core business services, the main work that the company performs for its customers. Whereas a charge item is more supplemental or incidental fees, things that support the main service but aren't the service itself. These are often small fixed charges that get added on to a job invoice. So to summarize, service items are the main work you're hired to do, flexible pricing, often job specific, charge items, add-on or extra cost, usually fixed amounts, and then activity items are time-based work tracked through time tickets. So I'm going to open up one of these items from the list. I'm going to select an activity item and I'm going to specifically select this one labeled Install Hardscape Commercial. And by hardscape, we're talking about the construction side of landscaping, things like patios, retaining walls, walkways, and so on. Basically anything that's built from materials like brick, stone, or concrete rather than plants or soil. So to open that one up, I'm just going to double click on it. So this item is set up as an activity item, which means that we're going to track the hours that our employees spend working on it and bill the customers accordingly. We can see here that we can give a more descriptive description of what the item is. The item ID may not be real clear as to what that means, but here we got a little bit more information about the meaning of that item ID, and we specify the billing rate. So this is the rate that we charge our customers for every hour of service that we do. We map the service item to, the activity item to the income account that it's associated with. We can see here, if I click on the magnifying lens, that it's being mapped to a sales hardscape services, so it's a sub account of the main revenue account. And then it looks like we can specify whether this item is taxable or not. If I click on the magnifying lens, I can see what those codes mean. So it's set up with a code of 1, which means it is taxable. In the state of Michigan, services as of this timing of this video are not taxable, so it would be exempt. It wouldn't be charged tax if they were in Michigan, but apparently in this state that this business is organized in, that is a taxable service. Another cool thing is that when I click on each of these fields, you'll see there'll be a window that pops up that sort of defines what that field is all about. So now that we've talked about the service items, charge items, and activity items within Sage, now let's look at how a business would track the employees' time that they spend on those activity items. That's where time tickets come in. So I'm going to close out of the inventory list, and then I'm going to click on the employees and payroll area from the navigational menu. And then to look at all of the time tickets that are already in the system, I'm going to click on the time and expense ticket button, and then I'm going to select view and edit time tickets. And when I did that, I see that the date range that's showing here is as this period, and we're looking at the time tickets that were recorded during the month of January. So I'm going to change that because the book's looking at time tickets in the month of March. So it looks like what I can do here from this drop down is select period 3, and it should show March's time tickets, and it does. And from this list, right now the time tickets are sorted in order by time ticket number. You can click on these column headings to sort these tickets in different ways. I'm going to take a look at a specific one, time ticket number 282. So I'm going to double click on it to open it up. So we can see where there's quite a bit of information on this time ticket. The first thing I see here is that we specified the employee whose time was to be billed to the customer, Alan Hardman. We can see that the time ticket was applied against a job. So the business is using a job order cost system. And we can change that there depending on what we're going to be doing, but typically that's what we'll do. And then we can indicate the job that we're working on for that particular customer here. So from that drop down, you can see these are the customer names, Genki, O'Hara, and then we have more detail about the type of activity that we're doing on that job. So here for the activity item, we can see that they've selected install hardscapes in a commercial environment. So this is getting back to those activity items that we looked at a moment ago, that specific one we looked at a moment ago. We have a little bit more of a description that will show up on the invoice, talking about what specifically hardscape-wise were we doing for this client. We have the date that the employee did this work. We have the amount of time that they spent doing that work on that date. And then over here, we have the billing details. So here we're set the billing status to billable. It's going to bill to a client. The billing type, that's going to determine the rate that we're charging the customer. So you can see here that they've specified the activity rate, which would come from the setup of this activity. That could be changed to like the employee rate. That would be the hourly rate that we pay the employee. But the business is here to make money, so if they charge the employee rate, then they wouldn't be making a markup on the employee's time. So we'll just leave that as it was, which was set up as activity rate, $60 per hour multiplied by the 8 hours the employee worked gives us $480, the amount that we're going to bill the customer for this work. All right, now that we've looked at the time ticket itself and talked through the fields on the screen, the next step in the book is to click on the button for the timesheet up top here. And when we do that, we see something that looks more like a weekly summary. It's a convenient way to view all the hours an employee has worked across different days and possibly different jobs or activities. So if we look at this one, it looks like for this O'Hara job that we've been looking at, Alan Hardman put 8 hours in on both Monday and Tuesday doing some install of some hardscapes in a commercial environment. If I click on these arrows, I can see different weeks. If I go back a week here, I can see Alan Hartman did some work on the O'Hara job with installing hardscapes again on Saturday and Sunday, and then they also did some work earlier in the week on a different job. In the real world, in a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, the employees or the crew leaders in the field usually fill out paper or digital timesheets showing exactly what they did each day. For example, how many hours were spent on installing hardscapes or lawn maintenance, etc. And then back in the office, the bookkeeper or the payroll clerk would enter that information into Sage 50 as either individual timesheets or directly through this timesheet view. So by clicking into timesheet here, it gives us a bigger picture. It shows how Sage combines all those individual time tickets into a single weekly view for payroll and billing purposes. So I'm going to close this out. And one last thing to mention here when we look at this time ticket again is that there is this banner across the top that has some important information. It says, has this ticket been applied to an invoice? And it says yes, and then it shows us the specific invoice number that this time has been applied to that invoice, and that's clickable. So I'm going to click on it, and I can see that we've created an invoice for this customer, and we've included many different billable items, including some line items related to the installation of hardscapes. In addition to getting to the invoice directly from that time ticket, if I close out of the time tickets as well as the time ticket list, we can also get to them through the customers and sales area of Sage. And here what I do is I click on sales invoices, view and edit sales invoices, and I'll be able to find that particular invoice. Once again, it looks like it's showing transactions during the month of January. I'm going to change that to March, and then I should be able to see that that invoice. It was invoice 1008, and there's just another way to get to it. On this invoice, if I click on this link that says apply tickets expenses, in the bottom left, I can see the time ticket that we were just looking at, as well as some other ones that are charged directly on this invoice. So I get that cross-referencing there. In order for this time and billing system to be set up properly in Sage, we also have to set up payroll. So that's what I'm going to take a look at now. So I'm going to close out of these open windows, and I'm going to click on the employees and payroll area from the navigation menu. And from here, we're going to look at the employee record for that Alan Hardman employee. So to do that, I'm going to click on the employees button, view and edit employees, and then look for Alan's name. It's the first one in the list. Double click on it. And here we have Alan Hartman's employee record within Sage. I'm going to click on the pay info tab, and we can see here that the pay method is set up to hourly time ticket hours. So this tells Sage to pull the number of hours worked directly from the time tickets when we process payroll, so that the employee's pay is automatically calculated based on the time that's been recorded on those time tickets. So that actually gets us through the end of Chapter 8's body. However, we didn't actually record any transactions or any settings changes. We sort of just explored. So I'm going to continue with this, and I am going to demonstrate the transactions that are in the exercises. So I'm going to break pattern here and actually just work through the rest of the chapter. So you just need to follow along in your company file and do all the things that I'm doing here. So I'm going to skip over to exercise 8.1. It's on page 247 of our textbook. And what we're going to do now is enter a time ticket for an employee named Mike Hayes. So to do that, I'm going to close out of these active windows, and then on the navigational menu, I'm going to make sure I'm on employees and payroll. And then I'm going to click on the time and expense ticket button. I'm going to select new time ticket. So from the employee ID list, I'm going to find Mike Hayes. There he is, M. Hayes. We're going to set up this time ticket to be applied to a particular job. So from that drop down for the choice of to be applied, we're going to select against a job. Now we've got this drop down for the job ID. So we're first going to find the customer that we're doing the work for. It looks like the customer is DBH. So I'm going to select them and expand it out by hitting that plus button. And what we're seeing under DBH now relates to some topics that we talked about in Chapter 6 when we talked about job order costing. We're seeing what we call phases of a job. Phases are the major components or stages of a job. And so we see planning, design, installation, maintenance, and service. So sort of a logical order to that in terms of the process of completing a typical job. So someone had to go in and set up these phases within the job order system in the software. This chapter isn't really focused in on job order costing, although we are applying this time ticket to a job. But we sort of briefly talked about this phase idea in Chapter 6, and now we're actually seeing it. And the book doesn't really explain this, so I thought I would mention what this is. And the text says to select a phase of 04 maintenance. So I'm going to click on the plus button next to that one. And then once I expand that out, within each phase we see what are called cost codes, and this is also something that you'd have to set up within the system, the job order system in Sage. And cost codes break things down even further into specific types of costs or tasks. So we're seeing general labor, design labor, landscape labor, and the text says we're going to select landscape labor. And just a little side note there before I go any further with this, if you wanted to see where those phases and cost codes are set up, if you go to the maintain drop down and then go to job costs, you can see them here. So if I click on phases here, I'm going to see, if I click on the drop down there, I'm going to see those phases that we were specifying when we were setting up this time ticket. But I'm going to close that out. I'm not setting up new phases, just want to show you where they were at. Getting back to that time ticket, I've got the employee ID in there. I've got the tickets being applied against a job. I specified the job, the phase, and the cost code. Now from the drop down list, I'm going to specify the activity item, basically what was Hayes doing. We're going to go there and we're going to select weekly maintenance in a commercial environment. So I scroll down until I see that. There it is. I'm going to specify the ticket date here, make sure that it says March 15th. The book says 2019, we're rolling with 2022 here. We're going to enter the duration that he spent doing this work, which is 8 hours. I'm going to make sure that the billing status is set to billable. We want to build a client for this work. And then the billing type, we don't want to use employee rate because that would bill the customer for the hourly rate that we pay our employee. We're going to make a profit here, so we're going to select activity rate. And once we did that, we should see a billing rate showing up of $35 per hour multiplied by the 8 hours gives us a billing amount of $280. Now we haven't recorded this time ticket yet, so of course it has not been applied to an invoice, so we see that up top here. We are going to apply it to an invoice in a moment, but first we just got to save the time ticket to the system. So I'm going to click on the save button. And now I'm going to close out of this window to see that the time ticket was saved. If I go to the time and expense ticket button, select view and edit time tickets, you should see that time ticket in our list. It's actually at the bottom of the list. Looks like it's right here for $280 M. Hayes. So I'm going to close out the time tickets list, and now we are going to apply the time ticket to an invoice. We're going to build a customer. So from the navigational menu, I'm going to select customers and sales, and then in the workflow area, I'm going to select sales invoice and then new sales invoice. From the customer ID drop down, we're going to specify that customer, DBH Enterprises. We're going to put in the invoice date. The text says to use March 22. So I'm going to go with that. You can't see my calendar because I got multiple screens and it just randomly shows up on another one. Here I've got that March 19th date. Once again, the year is going to be different, but roll with 2022. We're going to manually enter the invoice ID number, and it's 1019. And now we're going to apply that time ticket to this invoice. So to do that, we click on this Apply Tickets and Expenses link, and then here we see this particular time tickets details that we just entered a moment ago, and we are going to check the Use box on this screen, and then we're going to click OK. And once we did that, we can see those 8 hours doing the weekly maintenance in a commercial environment is now showing up on the invoice at the $35 activity rate, multiplied out to a total of $280. After tax, sales tax is applied, the invoice is showing a total of $295.40. Make sure that yours does, and then once it does, you can save this invoice. The screen cleared. I'm going to close out the window. All right, we've got one last transaction to record. We are going to cut a paycheck for Mike Hayes, our employee. So to do that, we're going to go to the Employees and Payroll area from the navigational menu. We're going to select Pay Employees, enter payroll for one employee. In the window here, we're going to find the employee's name, so it's M. Hayes. And for the date, we're going to use the date in the textbook, which is March 23rd. And once again, it's using a different year. That's fine. We're just going to roll with 2022. And when you do the date, not only specify the date of the paycheck, but also the date that the pay period ends on. So make sure that also is showing March 23. 2022. And once we do that, you should see a total of 24 hours appearing on screen. You're going to have a net pay that equals the amount that you see here, $330.39. Normally we would manually enter the check number, but the book doesn't provide one, so we're going to ignore that. If I want to see the 24 hours and what Mike Hayes was doing, I can click on the jobs button on this screen, and here we're going to see the 8 hours of work that we did for DBH. Actually, we're seeing 16 hours, so that includes 8 hours that were already in the system, as well as some work that Hayes did for a different client on a different job. So your screen should match mine. You should see 16 hours for DBH job and then 8 hours for the Reynolds job. Okay, on that. And then I'm going to save to post it to the system. The screen is cleared. I'm going to close out the window. So that's it from chapter 8. What we should do next is run a couple of different reports that I'm going to need for your submission for the week. So to run reports, we click on the reports and forms drop down, and we're going to run some reports related to jobs. So I'm going to select that, and you're going to create a job ledger report. So we'll double click on that. And here we have all of the jobs that the company's been working on. The date range here though is showing January, and we were recording transactions during the month of March. So we're definitely going to want to change that. So to do that, go to options, and then from the drop down here, we don't have one that was really for March, so I'm just going to manually change that to show activity during the month of March. So March 1st through March 31st. And click OK. So now the screen has updated. If we look at that particular job that we were entering information on the time ticket for and invoicing for, it was DBH was the customer, so we see all the detail here. Your totals for DBH should match up with my totals. So before you submit, make sure that they do. And if they do not, then you can look through these details here and maybe find a difference on yours and try to reverse engineer and figure out why. So when you get that to match, make a PDF of it. And then I also want a couple of other documents for this week. So I'm going to close out of this report and take a look at those. So the other reports are in the time and expense reports category. And the first one I'm going to take a look at is going to be the time ticket register. So double click on that. Once again, the date range is not showing the activity during March, so click on options and specify the date range. Once we got March in there, click OK. And then when we look at this list, your time ticket that you entered earlier should pop up. You should see this time ticket on March 15th for $280 recorded by M. Hayes. And if this is interactive, so if I wanted to double click on it, I could see that time ticket entry screen that we saw earlier. And now that we have applied it to an invoice, we can see that yes, it is applied to an invoice, and we have the invoice number as well. So if you find your time ticket for Hayes during the month of March there, and the details are matching up with mine, make a PDF of this document as well. And then finally, we got one more report to run, so I'll close this one out. And this is going to be a payroll timesheet. So it's in the time and expense reports area, payroll timesheet right here. This payroll timesheet should show as of March 15th, 2022. Make sure yours does. And if we scroll down and find M. Hayes here, we should see those 8 hours related to that time ticket that we entered. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, your total hours should match up with mine at 404 hours. If you're getting this to match up, make a PDF of it, and that's the last report that I need from chapter 8. If you have any questions, please let me know.